Welcome everybody to the Alleghenies Ahead podcast. Today we're here in Fulton County on what used to be the Pennsylvania Turnpike. This section of roadway was one of the most popular interstate highways in all of the United States at the time of its construction. As you can see, it's now abandoned. And my guest here today, Don Schwartz, who is the Bedford County Planning Director, is leading efforts to turn this into a recreational trail. And so, in the southern Alleghenies region, we have a lot of wonderful recreational trails, the Gap Trail in Somerset County, the Ghost Town Trail in Cambria County, Lauer Trail in Blair County, H&BT Trail in Bedford County. And so this would be another addition to our trail infrastructure in the southern Alleghenies region. So the story of how this got to be one of the most revolutionary pieces of transportation infrastructure to becoming abandoned to a recreational trail is really a fascinating story, and Don's going to guide us through the story here. But it really begins in 1940 when this opened as the Pennsylvania Turnpike. And this section was only in service for 28 years. It was really kind of a victim of its own success in that when the Turnpike opened, people didn't think it would be used in the volumes that it was used. And so the portion of the highway we're standing on now was a 4-lane highway, which narrowed down into 2 lanes going into the tunnel. So as the Turnpike became more popular over the years and more travelers were using it, bottlenecks started to build up. And so transportation planners at the time had to come up with some alternatives, and rather than boring another tunnel through the hill, it was cheaper to go over the mountain. And so in 1968, this section of highway was abandoned. So for almost 50 years, this has been here. So Don, welcome again.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about where we're standing and what you guys are trying to do.
Well, we are standing on the old Pennsylvania Turnpike. As Ethan said, it was replaced in 1968 when the Turnpike Commission decided to not twin the tunnels here or down in Breezewood at the Rays Hill Tunnel. This is the Sideling Hill Tunnel, which was the longest tunnel on the Turnpike at 1.3 miles.
So this tunnel it's 1.3 miles, right?
Yeah,
6,700 plus feet.
Right.
It's very scary when you step inside, and
very dark,
very quiet.
The process actually started real briefly in the 1880s when a railroad was proposed to be built through this region. The actual railroad bed is just off to our left in the woods, and you can be seen. And that project failed, although several of the tunnels were partly dug basically by hand, including this tunnel, the Sideling Hill and the Rays Hill Tunnel. It was abandoned. Flash forward to the 1930s, the Depression, the beginning of World War II, and both as a Depression-era project and as a national security project, the Pennsylvania Turnpike was built as the first limited access highway in the United States. It opened to great success. As Ethan said, people thought it would be a failure. It was an immediate success, highly trafficked. A little highlight was there was no speed limit on this road the first couple years per the Autobahn, which it was modeled after in Germany. And there were people probably from the first day going 100 miles an hour flat out and in cars built in the 1930s on this road. Time went on. It became overcrowded, as Ethan said, was abandoned here, and the new turnpike goes over the top of the mountain. The tunnel you see in the background is about 500 feet below grade level. It sat that way abandoned. It's 4 lanes of highway here. There are 2 tunnels about 4 miles apart, the Rays Hill and Sideling Hill, and it sat that way until 2001 when the Turnpike Commission turned this property 8.5 miles of road, including the 2 tunnels, to the Southern Alleghenies Conservancy, a nonprofit, to develop it into a recreational trail. That's what's gone on for a number of years. I began on this project 8 years ago myself. Last year, a couple things have happened. We had the creation of an economic impact study in 2013, jointly created by Bedford and Fulton counties, which showed potential for immense economic impact, followed by an update to a 2006 master plan that was approved, adopted by the counties, and then a joint municipal authority was formed between Bedford and Fulton County to own, operate, and manage the property and develop it. It's called the Bedford-Fulton Joint Recreation Authority. It is functioning as representatives from both sides of the county, and right now they're trying to get this property developed into a world-class attraction and trail, and I truly mean world-class. Mm-hmm. That's where we're at right now, trying to get this developed.
So you mentioned the economic impact study that was in 2013-14, and that was done really looking at, again, using our recreational infrastructure for economic development, mm-hmm. in that where we're standing now is less than 2 hours from the Washington, D.C., right. Baltimore suburbs. So, this is an easy range of day trippers coming out of D.C., Baltimore area, potentially millions of people. And I think 18 million people pass through Breezewood each year. That's just the Breezewood intersection here, which is 7-8 miles away
yes.
from us right now.
Yes.
So there's a tremendous amount of people who are both passing through here and that also live within the vicinity. Right. So tell us a little bit more about the study and how you want to pull those people here and how you would attract people who are passing through Breezewood to here, but also people from the DC, Baltimore area.
Well, we would start with this first as an attraction and benefit for local people. Mm-hmm. We see this as a benefit for all the people in both counties and the whole southern Alleghenies region per our comprehensive plan. Then it evolves out into the people, say, from the suburbs of DC, Baltimore, Philly, Pittsburgh, who want to come for a nice day trip, bringing them in, and then the larger universe are those 18 million people just passing through who might see a sign and say, hey, I can stop for a few hours, mm-hmm. right? They may not even know about it. So with proper advertising, everyone believes the attraction, and it would be an attraction, not just a trail, would be immense. The numbers that you read, you hear, that have been calculated is that upon full development with a few amenities, quite easily 200,000 people a year would come to this site, and potentially quite a bit more, depending upon, again, how it's developed. Mm-hmm. So it's in a perfect sweet spot on the transportation network, and it's very close to high-density population centers. Mm-hmm. And it would also benefit, again, local folks.
So what were some of the economic impacts that were forecasted?
There's a direct impact of folks spending money on both sides of the trail, restaurants, hotels, bike shops, things like that. There's a potential as more and more traffic comes through here for larger retail to be developed. And then also, it seems like a bit of a spin-off, but if you have enough people coming to this area every year, if even a fraction of a percent to say, hey, this is a beautiful area, I might want to move here or retire here, mm-hmm. then you have that attraction as well. So again, it's multi-level on the economic impact, but certainly it's a needed impact, and the facility is here. It's literally worth billions of dollars, and it would be a shame to let it just waste away without being used as a tremendous economic driver. Mm-hmm. It would change Breezewood forever.
Mm-hmm. So when you're bringing people to this site, whether it be economic development consultants or legislators, mm-hmm. Investors, what's the response? What's the response that you get from people when you walk them out here?
Well, we often come to the other end here and come through the long tunnel first. And by the time people get to the long tunnel, they're usually slack-jawed. Mm-hmm. They cannot believe what they've seen and witnessed and experienced. We've had numerous legislators out here. We've had a tour bus with 30 people drive through that tunnel. I've driven vans through that tunnel. And again, once they see the beautiful vistas and the tunnels, and the response is always, why hasn't this ever been developed? Mm-hmm. It's immediate response, and often people are stunned by it, mm-hmm. Especially when you see that Sideling Hill tunnel and go through the length of it at 1.3 miles. Mm-hmm. It's an amazing place.
Mm-hmm. So you had the economic impact study. Mm-hmm. Where did things go from there?
Well, the study was done, and then it became obvious that a master plan that had been done and complete in 2006 need to be updated. Mm-hmm. So a committee was formed, a consultant was hired and retained, and that study was accomplished and adopted in, I believe, late 17 or early 18. Completely updated the study, proposed new amenities. Lighting has improved in the past so many years, and solar lighting perhaps now, and things like that. a footbridge over Route 30 in Breezewood, which would really change the parking situation and open up hundreds of parking spots. So that study was done, it was adopted, and that led to the proposal to create a joint municipal authority between the two counties to own and operate this property, which was still owned by SAC, Southern Alleghenies Conservancy at that time. SAC agreed to turn the property over for $1. It happened earlier this year, and is now owned by the Bedford Fulton Joint Recreation Authority. One important point in this, Ethan, is that this property is 8.5 miles long, and the right-of-way, or it's 200 feet wide. The property is 8.5 miles long and 200 feet wide from the center line. It's owned under one deed. There's almost no property acquisition has to be done to build this project, unlike other similar projects. None. It's a big advantage.
Oh, absolutely. And I can tell you from working on rail trails that all it takes is one property owner to hold up a project like this, but having the whole corridor is tremendous,
it's
tremendous
huge
opportunity.
There may be a little property acquisition at the ends, but basically what you see here is owned by SAC, 200 feet wide.
So what are some of the ideas? I know, again, when people come out here, they're like, wow, this is amazing. When people come to you and say, hey, Don, I have an idea for this. Tell me some of the ideas that people have had for this place.
Well, there's some reasonable ones. Fall festivals, antique car shows, running races, road running races, bicycle races maybe, those types of things. Then you get into concerts, and I can tell you, having done it myself and with my son and his cello in there, there's near perfect acoustics in these tunnels. You could have any kind of concert, from country to western to rock to classical to whatever you want, Christmas. There's a discussion of light shows. People have brought up neon, which that may not work, but also LED light shows, permanent or semi-permanent light shows, having people come out at night to witness light shows. We get further up the scale. I've had a proposal for wheeled dog sled races, which I think is fascinating. Geocaching, which is already occurring. The list goes. Someone proposed a zip line, drone racing, and finally there was a proposal for a drag strip with a full design that was delivered to me, but I don't know. I'm not sure if the drag strip's going to work, but I think once this property is developed, we haven't scratched the surface of what can be done out here. Yeah. But there certainly needs to be group activities to support the maintenance needs of this expensive property.
So I know there is a road race coming up, right?
Yes, there is.
In a couple weeks, the end of the road.
Yes, for this will be the third year, the end of the road race run by Trivium Racing from North Carolina. It's going to be a half marathon this year, October 26th, along with a cleanup day on October 25th here, to make it safe for the runners. It's been successful. The owner loves it, and we hope to have that race really grow, especially once the property is improved. But that could be a real drawing card every year, is that marathon or half marathon that Trivium is running. But it's already the third year in a row it's been run, so there's a history and a success, yes.
So who's patronizing these events? Do you find it's local people, people from out of town, combination of both?
Both. The first year I had the owner track the zip codes for the people coming. The median distance of one-way travel was 175 miles to get to the race. So that again tells you about the regional draw. If you draw a circle 175 miles around Breezewood, you're going to pick up most of the northeast or the metropolitan northeast. And so it's a mix, but there are people coming from a great distance to do this.
And that's what we've been finding on some of the other trails, talking with the leaders of the Ghost Town Trail in Ebensburg. I know that they have some very similar events, and they get people from all over, and people come here and they say, wow. And so you never know what that moment leads to. Does it lead to somebody who wants to come here and buy a home? Does it lead to somebody who wants to come here and invest? So
that's right. If we can just get the people here, I think people will see the attraction. It's getting them here. And this would be one piece of the puzzle to getting people here to take a look.
Well, speaking of the attraction, it's a beautiful day here, and we've I know we've had this date scheduled a few times and had to rearrange, but our patience has been rewarded with the day we have today. So speaking of the attraction, we wanted to get a little closer to the tunnel so our viewers can see up close what this looks like. So we're going to pause here, relocate, and be right back in a minute. Okay, so welcome back. Here we are at one of the marquee features of this trail, the tunnel, the mile-long tunnel. I got here about an hour before we started and rode my bike back in. It seemed like a really long way, and it was nothing but darkness. I turned around and came back because it was a little unsettling being back there in the darkness. And I had a big headlamp, and the tunnel just sucks the light away, and you really can't see much of anything. But it's a really interesting experience. So there's a lot of graffiti here too, Don. What's your favorite graffiti?
Well, my favorite piece of graffiti, and it's I have to admit it shows my age, is David Bowie for president. And when David passed away,
Just
it was
on the left-hand side.
Oh,
right?
don't bring it.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
It's my favorite one. There's others that come and go. The famous Bart Simpson.
That's my favorite. I'm showing my age.
Some of it we won't show today, but the taggers have been in here. The graffiti changes all the time. At one point, I did have an offer from a group in Washington, D.C. He said we'd bring a bus up of the starving artists. If you give us those tunnels, we'll create professional artwork for free. Just let us come and do it. That was about 2 or 3 years ago. I said, well, there can't be any permission like that right now, but maybe in the future. So there is the potential to use these as giant canvases, 2 miles of canvases, yes.
So there's obviously endless possibilities. Who are some of the project partners you're working with, both on specific projects and to make this project happen as a whole?
Well, I do want to give a shout out to some people who have supported this project. First of all, for the economic impact study that was done in 2013, there was funding. Community Foundation for the Alleghenies, thank you. The Lincoln Highway Heritage Corridor, thank you. That gave us some seed money to get that economic impact study done. Both sets of county commissioners, Bedford and Fulton, thank you. REI, who has a large center over in Bedford County, thank you. They participate in cleanup days. We've had multiple people volunteer for cleanup. Of course, the members of the new authority and the members who served on the committee that developed the new study. The Bedford Fulton Outdoor Education, Inc. It's a 501c3 nonprofit, BFOE, or as we finally call it, BFO. BFO was created to provide a nonprofit arm to assist with all kinds of projects in the 2 counties, but specifically this one. And BFO, which is at BFOEINC@gmail.com, is promoting an outdoor expo the day before the race on October 25th over in the Holiday Inn in Breezewood for exhibitors, outdoor equipment, etc., and to also do a volunteer cleanup day here on the 25th so that the race is safe for the participants. But BFO has stepped up to the plate in a big way as a local regional partner as a nonprofit. So I'm sure I've left somebody out, but there's a lot of local interest, a lot.
Walk us through the experience of walk. I didn't even intend to do that. But talk about going through the tunnel on a bike or on foot, end to end. What's that like? Because I went out and I turned around. So,
well, it varies, of course. Doing it on a bike. If you do it on a bike, the first thing you'll notice, the 2 tunnels are different. The Breezewood tunnel is shorter. It's 0.7 of a mile, so you can see daylight, even a pinpoint, when you go in. It's straight. The Sideling Hill Tunnel, which is 1.3 miles, almost twice as long, has a slight hump in the middle. So light doesn't travel all the way straight through. However, even as you get in a small way, you'll see a faint glow. That's light reflecting off the roof from the other end and then down back to you. So you'll see this kind of eerie glow that gets larger and larger. The road is also, for drainage, humped to the sides. So if you're on a bike in the darkness, as I was, and you don't realize it, all of a sudden your bike starts to veer over and you're going to hit the wall. You don't even realize it because you don't feel the pull. So you have that experience. It's a lot longer and slower than it seems, as Ethan has said. It seems to go on forever, even on a bike, because you can only go so fast. And then slowly the light builds from the other end, and you do come out the other side into this most beautiful scenery here in the Buchanan State Forest. But it's a very quiet, peaceful, and eerie ride is the best way to describe it. Walking, of course, would take a lot longer. I've only biked through it. I haven't walked it, but definitely headlamps are required. And by the way, disclaimer, the trail is officially closed. It's obvious travel at your own risk. It has not been maintained or preserved for 50 years, and people need to realize that and be very safe out here. Headlamps, bring water. If you're on a bike, bring extra tubes. Easy to puncture a tire. It's a long walk back, and but be extra careful here. This is an abandoned highway that's 50 years old.
Describe to us, Don, what's in the background here. The tunnel's obvious, but what's up above?
Well, these were, you can imagine the tunnels had control rooms. So at each end, you do have the old control rooms here. These were the offices and control rooms for the people who worked here supervising the tunnel. Obviously abandoned. Windows have all been broken out. Further in, there are gigantic ventilating fans. There used to be fans in the floor. They've been removed, but you had the motors that turned the fans. They still turn. So there's kind of a mixture inside there. As long as there's light, you can kind of see the equipment. And after that, it's pitch blackness, which is, again, the reason that there's definitely off-limits places out here. But that's what you're looking at. There used to be people working up there.
Yep. Yeah. So, as you've been working on this for several years now, what are some of the obstacles to overcome? What are you working on to, or what's preventing this from happening right now?
Well, the biggest obstacle is money. There was a master plan done in 2006. The other one was finished in 18. We had an economic impact study in 13. There's all kinds of documentation in print that this will work to the best knowledge of experts. It simply comes down now to money. The most recent estimate to do most of this and the walking bridge over 30 over in Breezewood is about $8 million. $1 million has been awarded from the state for economic development. That happened earlier this year. Mm-hmm. So they're still looking for, the authority is looking for money in every possible avenue. Public-private partnerships, federal, state, donors, you name it, wherever it can come from. Mm-hmm. But there is $1 million that's been acquired already, but there's much more to go. If the money was available, I think the design would start today.
Can you spend that $1 million right now, or what's the status?
Maybe a little difficult. I think that money is for construction.
Okay.
So without design, you have no construction.
So you need money for the design
to do construction. I think that money is restricted for construction, and also, and this is just a personal view, this will be a little bit of a difficult project to do in phases. If you upgraded all the trail surface, what do you do about the tunnels? Mm-hmm. If you upgrade the tunnels, what do you do about the trail? Mm-hmm. This isn't one of these projects, I think, where you can do it a mile at a time down an old railroad bed. Mm-hmm. This one, it seems to be almost has to be done in one shot or two big shots, which are both going to require millions of dollars because of the safety issues. Mm-hmm. So probably not in multiple phases.
So who else are you working with? Who are the stakeholders who are pushing this project along right now?
Well, again, obviously there's local citizens. We have strong support over in the Breezewood business community. We do have the commissioners from both counties. The creation of the authority was a big deal. Really made the difference in having an ownership model to pass the property from SAC. There had to be some viable ownership model, so it's the creation of the authority. And then there's still folks who help on an annual basis, like REI. We have volunteer groups come out here and help, clean the property. and various, individuals who are very interested in the project. But it's really, I think, bringing the two counties together in a big way. And of course, there's the never-to-be-forgotten BFO, Bedford Fulton Outdoor Education, which sprang up specifically to start this project.
Okay.
Yep.
So the BFO group, who's behind that, or give us a little bit more background on that.
Group of interested citizens who are, it's Bedford Fulton Outdoor Education, so they're not specifically focused just on this project. They want to do other things in Bedford and Fulton counties. Environmentally active people who want to see economic development as well. And they're the ones really supporting the half marathon this year. They've kind of taken over working with the Trivium Racing. So that's really shifted to BFO. They're doing that. They're the ones setting up the expo on October 25th over in Breezewood. That's BFO. They're trying to be sort of a nonprofit arm, quasi, as best they can for the authority, although they operate independently. Yeah, so that's good to have a group like that to help out.
So besides the tunnel here, what are your favorite spots along the corridor?
Well, one of my favorite spots is you can't turn the camera around, but it's the view about 100 yards down the trail here, a quarter, when the vista just opens up and you see the ridge and you see the 4 lanes of highway. It's a tremendous view. Just down here to my left, a little ways again, would be, you can see the old railroad bed from the 1880s. It's still there. There is a stone culvert built in the 1880s, maybe we can get a few shots of, that was built without any mortar. And it's standing just as it did in 1885, I guess. And water still flows under the old railroad bed through this 130, 40-year-old structure, which, European stonemasons were brought over. They just pieced it together. Further back, and I haven't seen this, there's about a 700-foot-long culvert that's quite large that went under the railroad bed that I've seen people walk in, at least stooped over, and that's the same way. No mortar, no cement, 700 feet long, just standing in the middle of the woods. And that's something I have yet to see, but it's supposed to be pretty spectacular. They did a pretty good job back in the 1880s.
So, if you had to guess, when will all this be done? When can anybody come out here and enjoy this? When will there be a trail surface and the tunnel lit? What's your time estimate?
Being a planner, Ethan, well, maybe you don't think I'm a planner, but that's okay. Having that kind of head, where we're at, funding, design, construction, those 3 phases, I would sure hope within 3 years, this can be completely done. It's all dependent on the money. But, it's certainly not going to get done in a year. 2 years would be really pushing it, for everything. So, fully open, walkway over 30, the whole thing. I hope it's done in 3 years.
Okay. Is there a construction schedule once the money's in hand?
Well, there is in the study. I don't have it with me, but it's roughly in that range. I always look at projects sort of a year for design, a year for funding, a year for design, a year for construction. This is a big project, so I'm hoping that 3 years holds. If enough money comes in, maybe they can get started on the design, before all the construction money appears and get a jump on it. But this is a big project. There have to be environmental impact reviews. There are some rare species of bats that live up in the tunnels. They have to be accounted for. So this is going to take a bit of doing, but I know there's a lot of interest right up through the state levels in Harrisburg on this project. So I'm betting on 3 years.
Okay. So if somebody wanted to get involved, they watch and they say, yeah, this is an amazing project. How can somebody who's not involved now get involved and help out?
2 ways I can think of. The Bedford Fulton Joint Recreation Authority meets the second Wednesday at 6 p.m. in the East Providence Township Municipal Building in Breezewood. Okay, they have a monthly meeting. And then BFOE, BFOEINC at gmail.com. That's your sort of your volunteer nonprofit group. Contact them, and they have plenty to do. So either go directly to the authority or to the nonprofit BFO. So that's the 2 ways that people can get involved, and I'm sure they'd be given a lot of jobs, a lot of tasks.
And you mentioned the need for financial contributions too.
Yes.
Is there a way or a vehicle for people to contribute financially to the project?
Could contribute directly to the authority. I believe also contributions to BFO would be handled as a contribution to the authority. You have to contact them, but certainly any direct contributions of funds or cash at this time, I would strongly encourage anybody who wants to see this project go. It's a fledgling project. It's desperately in need of operating capital, and so contacting the authority or BFO or my office at the Bedford County Planning Commission, I can put you in direct contact with whoever needs to hear from you. But sure, straight up cash contributions would be great at this time. They really need it.
Is there anything else you'd like to add or talk about here? You can see it. There are members of the public using the trail.
Yes. I'd just like to say that I've been coming here for 8 years. I hadn't heard about this project till I came here, and the first time I saw it, it made my jaw drop. I hope the camera captures what is here. It's difficult to do until you're actually on the property. And I'm a student of history, and this just oozes history. You cannot get more history than when we're standing right here. It also has a tremendous environmental impact. We're right now in the middle of the Buchanan State Forest. Normally, if there aren't visitors, it's completely quiet. Tremendous environmental experience, and so it mixes history with environment, and a really nice recreational opportunity. A round-trip bike ride here is 17 miles. You would see 4 tunnels, which is, I think, the perfect length for a family outing. It's something that I'd hate to see go to waste. These tunnels were built in the late 30s to 1940. They're still basically structurally sound. They were built massively, and I'd like to see them used for the future and not wasted. I mean, this is a jewel. It may not look like one now, but it really is. So I'm hoping that people can get involved, make donations, get involved, and make this project a reality. It'd be wonderful for the whole region. And our comprehensive plan, Ethan.
Cheers.
Okay?
I agree. This is my first time here today as well. And yeah, when you make the turn off of the trail here and you see this, and it's absolutely incredible. It really is. And like you said, from a historical perspective, environmental perspective, recreational perspective, there's just so much promise here. So I hope you're successful. In 3 years, we're out here on a bicycle, on a well-groomed trail with a tunnel that's open to the public. So keep up the good work, Don.
Thank you. Next time I'll wear my hip clothing, Ethan. I'm sorry.
You look good. You look good.
As always, Mr. Imhoff, a pleasure being with you.
It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And thanks for watching the Alleghenies Ahead podcast.
Bye-bye.